A Biden staffer stops Ted Cruz from taking video of the child facilities at the Texas border with migrants. Texas COVID numbers are decreasing despite the mask mandates. And we look at if Florida Republicans are really making a bill that would ban giving voters water on election day. These stories and more on your March 30th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off from Red State, a Biden staffer tries to block Ted Cruz from taking video of conditions at the CBP facility. Cruz bust her on camera. Here's the video that he put up on his Twitter.
Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people,
because the political
rules.
leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures
rules.
taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're
respect
designed
the
to
rules
keep
and
the
give
American
the
people
people
in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well, no,
dignity
it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please.
dignity and respect? Look
Please.
She continues on this for about another 30 seconds. In general, she just keeps repeating that they need to be treating the individuals at the border with dignity and respect. Similar comments were made by Ilhan Omar in trying to defend the Biden administration earlier this week. Here's a recording of that.
Effective way to address a problem that was created by an administration that believed you had to create maximum pain in order for immigrants not to come to our border. And so when you have an administration now that says we are going to deploy maximum humanity and dignity in treating people in
I just want to state for the record that these detention facilities, the practices going on there, are not treating anyone with any bit of dignity, with any bit of respect, with any sense of human rights whatsoever. It is more ethical to be telling these individuals not to come to the border at all, to not allow them to cross in, rather than to treat them like slaves and put them in these plastic pods. Do not lecture us about how they need to be treated with dignity while you're putting them literally, hundreds of them in these little pods that are meant to hold, a dozen individuals. Additionally, we need to look at how this is affecting the United States, specifically on a New York Post article that was done about a week ago that looks at the 100 of these migrants that are being released into the country without COVID tests. This comes from the Del Rio, Texas. U.S. Customs and Borders Protection have released around 2,000 migrants who illegally entered this tiny border town in West Texas without at least ensuring they had COVID-19 tests first. The volunteer-run center, nested between rows of cacti and miles of ranchland on the edges of the Chihuahuan Desert, sorry for butchering it, is the only buffer point migrants have between the U.S. Border Patrol and their next stop. Since February, they've received just over 2,000 migrants, 464 in February, and already 1,700 so far in March, Burrows said. Each day, between 100 and 150 migrants are dropped off at the center, where volunteers provide food, clothing, some necessities, and help booking a bus or plane out of town. However, before Friday, migrants were getting dropped off without a COVID-19 test and then brought to a bus station or airport to continue their journey, which is directly against all Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance. What we are doing, despite just the unethicality when it comes to locking these migrants in the plastic cages, is we're also creating an issue for the U.S. population already here that's been told that they have had to be locked down now for over a year as a result of COVID. It seems very hypocritical to be saying that it is treating individuals with dignity to have them piled up dozens in these little cubes, while the American populace has been told that they need to stay at home, stay away from everyone, not being able to go to the own funeral of grandma that was killed off by Cuomo. However, we do have a little bit of COVID news coming out of Fox. Texas COVID numbers decreased 17 days after the mask and other restrictions lifted. This was reported by the Governor Abbott. Today, Texas recorded the lowest 7-day COVID positivity rate since that data began being calculated, 5.43%. We also recorded the largest daily number of vaccines administered to Texans. More Texans getting vaccines will keep down the positivity rate, always voluntarily. This marks, a bit of interesting criticism that was, if you remember, thrown at Texas about a month ago when they announced that they were going to no longer have mandated mask usage by the state, and everyone was voluntarily able to use the mask. Now, this sets up one of two things, and anyone that's against it is allowed to give their theory. The first one is either the masks don't do anything, or two, that people are good enough citizens that they will volunteer to wear the mask regardless of any government edict. With the calls for mask mandates and whatnot, there's also been talk about vaccine passports. The Daily Caller reports here Florida Governor Ron DeSantis saying that he'll be taking executive action against vaccine passports with the following quote: "You want a fox to guard the henhouse? I mean, give me a break. We're not going to have you provide proof of this just to be able to live your life." We know that the government isn't able to mandate any type of, or at least the federal government isn't able to mandate any type of vaccine passport in the way that it would be, illegal for you not to get the vaccine. However, what we've now been seeing calls for is that the government to tell businesses that businesses would ban the use of you participating there without passports, and that seems to be just as bad. This is similar to how there were talks about the tech reforms where the government wasn't censoring speech, but the government was telling the tech companies to censor speech. It's the same issue, that the government is mandating it either themselves or mandating that businesses have to follow it. Canada is a Canadian advisory board recommends pause on the AstraZeneca vaccine for people ages 55 and under. Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization on Monday recommended against using the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine in adults under 55 while it's investigated further for concerns that it's linked to blood clots. The NACI recommends that AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine should not be used in adults under 55 years of age at this time, while the safety signal of the vaccine-induced thrombotic immune thrombocytopenia, I'm very sorry, following vaccination with AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine is investigated further, the organization said in a press release. Following population-based analysis of VIPIT, assessing risk of COVID-19 disease by age and considering that alternative products are available, i.e. the mRNA vaccines, from what is known at this time, there's substantial uncertainty about the benefit of providing AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine to adults under 55 years of age, given the potential risk associated with VIPIT, particularly at the lower estimate rates, the NACI added. This is one good sign, in my opinion, for something that hasn't been happened the entire coronavirus period, is this talk about the risk of, rushing vaccines that don't have the long-term testing because they haven't been around long enough to do so. Additionally, there's been a rush to do vaccines for individuals that might not need it, specifically those that have already been affected with COVID, or particularly those that are younger that have less risk when exposed to COVID. There's questions of if there is long-term risks that we haven't found yet, should we be rushing for individuals that are younger, particularly in this case they mentioned the age of 55, to be rushed to given a vaccine that we don't have those long-term testing done. Obviously this isn't saying that all vaccines are bad by any means, but we need to be doing risk and reward for every policy decision that we're making, and that conversation has not been happening. There, as far as I know, a year into this, there's been no real studies on the deaths that caused as a result of lockdown, specifically looking at alcoholism, suicide rates, etc., and how many lives were saved. That is the cost analysis that should have been done while doing these lockdowns, and we're a year in, and we still don't have a single number around that. Finally, looking at NBC News, Florida Republicans considering a new election bill that would effectively ban giving voters water. This is the same week that we saw that Georgia was passing new voting regulations, and essentially what I see with all of these is a vast oversimplification of what's going on, and essentially this headline is a lie. If we read the article, Florida Republicans are considering a bill that would effectively make it a crime to give voters food and drink, including water, within 100 feet of polling places. According to the text of election bills introduced last week, state law currently prohibits offering voter assistance within 100 feet of polling locations, and the new proposal is expanding that zone to 150 feet and includes a prohibition of giving any item to voter that interacting or attempting to interact with voters within that zone. I have been voting, now in, I think it's been 2 or 3 elections, and every single time I've voted, I've never been offered food, water. I've never been offered as much as a hello. I go there, I go into the machine, I click the boxes for who I want to vote for, and I leave. I've never been offered pizza. I've never been offered water, soda, donuts. I don't know what this picture is, but this should, in my opinion, should be illegal. This is just asking for individuals to bribe, and then just to show how of this is just absolutely insane. They're not even making it illegal to offer food. They're changing it from 100 to 150 feet. That's, sometimes not even the size of a room. So we're saying that you shouldn't be able to bribe an individual within the same room as they're voting. That seems like common sense to me. This seems like common sense voting regulations. But if you want to call that a ban on water for something that's already in place, go ahead. But that's absolutely bullshit coming out of NBC. And this is your March 30th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and have a good one.